Hey folks, the DIY Tarot Club starts on Monday, starts this month. If you're seeing this after we have actually officially begun, you can still join in. It'll run as a cycle. We're going to be meeting live every month. And the DIY Tarot Club is what it sounds like. We're going to be making our own tarot decks. And I wanted to just come and give you a little sneak preview of what's going on. So we're going to be kind of basing our core discussions on the Rider-Waite Smith tarot deck, conceived by A.E. Waite and with the artwork designed by Pamela Coleman Smith. So here's the Fool from there, because this is a really popular deck that people have followed. So for example, I've got the Golden Art Nouveau tarot here. You can see how similar the images are, and then getting slightly different but still the same figure moving. This is from Ethereal Visions, but you're not restricted to following that pattern. Here's a card from a Major Arcana only deck, the Fool again, and you can see how different it is, but how it also encapsulates that energy of beginnings, of the sense of balance, right? This is a collage deck made by a friend of mine, Thomas Herlock, who is a fabulous human being and artist, and it is surprisingly effective to work with. So the reason for the DIY tarot deck: one, loads of people want to make a tarot deck and don't have the discipline to sit down and do it or know where to start. But two, and more importantly, making your own cards is one of the best ways that you can actually engage with the symbolism and the artwork and get to learn them. So this is my workings out for like how to do a workbook for you. So there's a much tidier workbook, and I started out by just doing a little space to doodle the shape of the Fool and some keywords for it. And as you can see, the Fool, the Magician, the High Priestess, don't look too closely at my doodles, but do bear in mind that even though they're just simple scribbles in a ballpoint pen on plain paper, there's still something evocative about them. I'm still exploring the symbolism and the magic within them. You can see examples of tarot decks that have been made by the members of the Golden Dawn and by many other people, but we're going to go for a really simple process, right? Blank white cards, and I'm going to encourage you to start out by labeling them with the numbers and the Major Arcana cards, and then the suits as well for the Minor Arcana. And if you've seen me do my cryptid cards recently, then you might be familiar with the process that I'm using here. In our actual classes, I'm going to be making a deck alongside you using 5x3 index cards. So these are slightly smaller because they're my preferred arty cards, but 5x3 index cards and permanent markers in different colours to just show you how much fun you can have without any, as I say, artistic skill, special materials or anything like that, because the play is the point. So for the Fool, I'm thinking about dawn. I'm thinking about that early morning where the blue of the sky gives way to the sun rising, because it's that beginning moment. And so I'm going to start with this yellow, which you might recognise from that Rider-Waite Smith symbolism. It doesn't make it into all the cards, but where's my blotter gone? There we go. But there's also a little piece in here, not just the dawn, not just that brightly coloured, but that fresh blue sky. And rather than put that, let's have a look, let's have a feel into this. There's that blue sky of broad spaces and new beginnings and openings up, right? And now I'm expecting these colours to kind of blend a little bit at the sides. So there might be a little bit of murkiness. And that tells me something, right? We're looking at that dawning of the bright sun and then that freshness of the blue, and how actually in that point where they meet, it isn't always as straightforward. Things aren't always clear. Now, I do like the cliff. The cliff's really important in the symbolism of the Fool. It makes it really clear that the figure in it, that the Fool, is about that energy of taking a leap of faith, of not just new beginnings and dawnings, but of taking action, beginning to take action. So I'm including that in the blue of the sky. And the colours on the screen aren't actually filming quite as brightly as I've got them on the card, but that's okay. And then here, there's that moment of just about to dive off the cliff from the card. So I want that sense of movement. And the other key words that I've got here, innocence and naivety, that impulse, that urge, that drive to dive into the unknown. So I want that urge, that impulse here in a sense. I think I'm going to go for red. But I like the shape, now that that yellow's dried enough, of the Fool reaching up for something hopeful and unbound, and just on that edge of things, but not actually looking down, not looking at the risks, not worried, not scared, just looking up at this hope, this hopeful space. And that to me starts to feel like perhaps there's something there that is calling them forwards. And being an ADHDer, I often think of that. And here we've got that point where the blue and the yellow meet. A sense of a butterfly. The butterfly in a lot of sort of classical mythology, you're talking about the soul, right? Psyche in the Greek myths. So it's that, the butterfly of the soul, the spirit. And as I say, I wanted that green where the two meet. And you can see I'm going for really primary colours here because it's that sense of beginning. It's that moment where things are starting up. Now, because I've put colour down, I can't actually paint white on top of that with watercolours, right? It just doesn't work. I don't have white. But I don't want to make the dog black. I don't, in fact, even necessarily want to include the dog. Instead, what is the Fool carrying with them? What is weighing them down? What are they bringing from the journey before? And I start to think about that and think about, okay, the Fool is at the beginning of a journey, but the dog is there hurrying them along. And they have baggage with them, which says to me that while this is a new venture, they are not new to venturing. If we're thinking about this as being the beginning of a life, then there's that idea, that piece of reincarnation, right? Or of inheritance, of what's coming behind, what's coming before. And so I'm thinking about the music we already know, the songs that those who came before have sung, the rhythms that guide our lives and that guide our movements. And those rhythms include the rhythms of our hearts, that heartbeat, the rhythms of the steps that we have taken. And that's incorporated into the spirit, the soul of the butterfly, which conveniently also makes a slightly darker body. So you can start to see the shape coming together, the foundation of where we've been, mirroring rather than in shapes and in symbols, starting to tie it together with colours. And I'm thinking purple, because you've got here that urge of that red incorporated into the blue of where the journey, of where the Fool has been before. Now, I'm aware that that symbolism of that white holds some keys. It's like that sun, the white sun in the sky, isn't talking about the physical sun, it's talking about like the sun of spirit, of source. And so that being reflected in the white flower and the white dog, and even the white mountains behind, like tells you something about where source is running through, where the divine is running through. But we also have that then in the music. And so we're starting to shift from a top-down symbolism, and this is telling you something and telling me something about where my understanding of magic comes from. And so maybe you can see that while I'm doing this card, and I've only got, as I said, notes before and a few keywords, a couple of ideas, as I'm making this card and I'm looking at what I'm doing and reflecting on, okay, why purple? Why do I feel like the purple needs to go here? Part of it is an artistic choice. But part of it then, when I ask that question of, well, what is purple? It's red and blue. What is the red? The red is the urge. What is the blue? It's the open skies. And not just the skies ahead, but the skies behind. It is the foundation. And then, of course, that butterfly in the green. And the green is the green of the earth. So we've got the plants that have been growing. And this talks about the way in which, for me, and in my magic, which is very pagan, right? The soul, the spirit, is part of the life of the earth. The music that moves us forward, that guides us, that we carry with us from our ancestors and from those that have walked this path before and from our experiences before, our music and the music we've been gifted, is part of our foundation. It's part of where we leap off from. And the music travels through the air, so that will come with us wherever we go, as long as we remember it. Now I'm finding an urge to, I want to make sure that the Fool has another hand and another arm. So where do I want to put that? I'm going to, well, actually I quite like this reaching backwards as well. So there we go. And then that makes it clear that that's a foot, right? So here I hope you can start to see some of the ways you might play with the symbolism of the tarot, with paint and colour, and I'm hoping you can see that, look, this is not some kind of artistic masterpiece that might end up on the wall in the Tate Modern or whatever, or maybe it would, I don't know, they put all sorts of things up there now, right? But rather the process of playing has given me an opportunity to explore these ideas, these colours, the shapes in the cards, the principles, and to understand a little more deeply both the symbolism and what the cards were trying to express, what the artist was trying to express in a previous deck, but also how that relates to how I understand the world, how I work my magic. So now, when this comes up in a reading for me, and I'll probably add a little bit of pen and ink to add some definition once it's tidy, once it's dry. When this comes up in a reading for me, all of those things will come up. That sense of, oh, what are we remembering? What are we carrying with us? That doesn't necessarily weigh us down, but shapes us and shapes our journey. What are we following, and how does that connect to our life as lived? How does that connect to the growing green nature of the earth? How is the song of the ancestors, of the ancients, of those that come before, how is that also the song of the rocks of our foundation, And what does it mean to jump into that new possibility? And I think I'm going to leave that white, because that's that space of all possibility that comes just before you make that choice to jump. As soon as that choice is made, the possibilities will start to resolve themselves and colour will start to come in here and there'll be other cards and things like that. But at this moment, there's all possibility. So, whether or not you join us for the DIY Tarot Club, I hope that that has given you a little bit of an insight both into the Fool card, into how that symbolism might relate to your own practice, your own process, and how the process of playing, of engaging with the symbols and with the cards as artworks and with bringing out your own just playfulness can give you an opportunity to be inspired to engage with those cards more deeply, to notice things you wouldn't have noticed before. Right? So, DIY Tarot Club, our first live session is on the 9th of March. You can join up through the Grove tier in my Patreon, and we will be meeting live once a month on Zoom to discuss the symbolism of the cards and then to dive into making. I'll do a guided process where to help support you. So if you've not done anything like this before, don't worry, you'll be supported. And then we'll be making our cards with the recording stopped so that we can then share at the end and have that space to actually have made a start on our own decks. The recordings will go out as soon as I can get them out after a session, so that if you miss them, can't come live, you'll be able to keep up with the rest of us, and there'll be a space to share in the forum. And you can join us at any time, because each session will be dealing with a specific set of between 5 and 7 cards. We'll be exploring with a sort of thematic similarities, and if there are enough people, we will go around the cycle again. And if there's not, there's always the recordings and the group that you can share with the rest of us in your own time. The point is not perfectionism. The point is not artistic ability. We're not going to be feeding our concepts into AI or giving them to someone else. We're going to be playing. The play is the process, and the process is the point. And this is something that magicians and magical practitioners have been doing for ever. It's exploring and learning and engaging through play and through creativity, and creating our own tools and learning about ourselves and that magic in the process. So join me. You can find the links to sign up at haloquinn.net/T or in the comments, or go straight to my Patreon, patreon.com/haloquinn. Join up at the Grove tier or any of the tiers above to be a member of the DIY Tarot Club, and we will make our decks together. I can't wait.